Born with the weakest job, appraiser, Ein is treated like trash and lives in self-loathing. But everything changes when he meets Yuri, the spirit of the world tree, and Ursula, the sage. Gaining the spirit eye, Ein finally awakens his true potential. With new strength and courage, he sets off on an epic journey to face challenges and protect Yuri. Let's dive into this epic recap. Oh God, how can life be so utterly unfair? I'm incredibly unlucky to have to seek comfort from the King of Hell. As I'm falling, I can't help but smile and curse my mother-in-law. His life was considered worthless when he was alive, and even in death, he's still just trash. He returned to the past, to the time when Ein and his two teammates entered the dungeon. It was a stark contrast to his own experience. Ein couldn't fight. He was just a burden, a tool. Life was already difficult, but then he had to deal with these awful teammates. After defeating the mouse, Ein saw something valuable, thanks to his appraisal skill, but before he could get it, it fell. The other adventurers, particularly the female magic user Jolin, mercilessly teased him. Ein, with the weakest profession among them, endured their taunts and apologized. In this world, the god of light determines your profession, while the goddess of darkness grants you skills. Skills can be honed and developed, but your profession is fixed for life. Success or failure ultimately depends on luck. The career system is divided into 3 tiers. The top tier is the extremely rare elite class, primarily composed of wealthy merchants. The second tier includes professions like those of Zoid and Jolene, swordsman or mage. At the bottom are professions like his, where his skills are unsuitable for combat and he lacks strength. Even with the utmost effort, a profession is often inherited from one's parents. Tragically, he lost both his parents at birth, leaving him with no family business to inherit. He was forced to choose the more perilous path of becoming an adventurer. Initially, he dreamt of a better life, but the harsh reality soon set in. He discovered that the giant rat's front teeth were highly valuable. Ein attempted to pry the teeth out, but it was beyond his strength. He pleaded for help, but his teammates refused, accusing him of deceit. He was the one forced to perform the dirty work of collecting the teeth. He was subjected to ridicule, glaring eyes, and even physical abuse, treated worse than a dog. Jolene, in a fit of rage, demanded that he acknowledge his lowly position. Despite the abuse, the young man had no choice but to continue his work. He came to understand that this society was deeply unequal, where the weak had no voice. As he toiled, digging into the disgusting teeth of the mouse, the others gleefully mocked him. Though their malice was evident, they were correct in their assessment that appraisers were a lowly profession, reduced to collecting essence from dead monsters, essentially serving as mere carriers. Going back would be incredibly tiring. So Zoid found another individual like himself, someone willing to work after collecting valuables, then continue their journey together. This was the only way to survive in this harsh world. So, even though their profession was considered lowly, they had to delve deeper into the dungeon. Fortunately, they stumbled upon the corpse of a powerful creature hellhound. Selling it would yield a significant profit. Zoid, emboldened by the prospect of money, dared to examine the corpse, but Ian found the situation strange. Why would anyone leave such a valuable body here? Moreover, according to the Adventurers Guild, this type of monster shouldn't have even appeared in this area. Zoid urged his companion to proceed quickly, instead of dwelling on the mystery. Luckily, extracting the creature's teeth proved relatively easy. However, their relief was short-lived. They discovered not just one, but many such corpses. A chill ran down Ein's spine. The map clearly indicated a straight path through this section of the dungeon. Why had the terrain changed? He advised his companion to retreat, but they refused, driven by the allure of easy money. Ein, weakened and lacking the strength to argue, reluctantly agreed. He could have left alone, but his bag of supplies and hard-earned money would be confiscated if he was caught. He had no choice but to obey. Keeping a small portion of the earnings for himself, Ein feared that no team would accept him back after this incident. This fear, coupled with the constant abuse he endured, fueled his determination to succeed. Looking at the pile of valuable materials, Ein wondered how such a powerful creature could have been slain, and why the adventurers who defeated it would leave behind such valuable loot. The answer soon became horrifyingly clear. The dead monsters weren't slain by other hellhound. They were the victims of a gruesome, internecine struggle. A pack of these creatures had devoured each other. The sight was terrifying. Even a single adult of this species would be a formidable opponent. Running away was their best option, but they needed to create a diversion. The other adventurer, a cunning bastard, instructed his friend to cast a paralysis spell. Jolene, realizing the danger, quickly cast a transformation spell, turning Ein into a new target to lure the remaining monsters away. He urged his companion to escape while he held off the creatures. The young man was furious, but powerless to stop him. The monsters rushed in, biting and tearing at him, inflicting excruciating pain. However, the intense physical struggle broke the paralysis spell. Ein, seizing the opportunity, used a rock to kill one of the female monsters and discarded the remaining bait to buy himself some time to escape. He raced towards the end of the passage, only to find it blocked by his former companions. He was forced to take a detour through a narrow alley, which turned out to be a dead end. Every turn brought fresh misfortune. Faced with this cruel reality, Ein felt a wave of despair. Behind him was a pack of carnivorous monsters, and ahead, a bottomless abyss. Death awaited him regardless of the path he chose. Driven to the brink, he let out a pained smile. He imagined the agonizing pain of being devoured by the monsters, the agonizing wait for the game to log him out. If he fell into the abyss, he would likely be shattered into pieces. It seemed there was no escape. He decided to choose the quickest, most merciful end. At least he could enjoy the feeling of falling. In that final, self-reflective moment, he bitterly blamed himself for being born a useless appraiser. There were times he'd yearned to escape his fate, but despair always prevailed. He continued to strive, but the heavens seemed to delight in his misfortune. He believed that becoming an adventurer would grant him freedom, only to find himself subservient to Zoid, bowing his head and obeying like a slave. He was even abandoned, left to fall into the abyss, no longer blaming his profession. After all, no one chooses their birth. He acknowledged his own poor choices. He'd arbitrarily chosen the adventurer's path instead of seeking a more stable, albeit less glamorous, life. Now, it was too late for regrets. He hung his head, questioning the purpose of his existence, wondering if his life had held any meaning. He expected to die, to cease to exist, yet he lived, falling into a pool of water. His cries of pain had awakened someone. A figure approached, bearing a look of profound sadness. Moved by the young man's plight, gently, she kissed the young man's wounds, aiding in their healing. He awoke to find himself face to face with an astonishing sight, the World Tree, also known as the Tree of Ages. He initially thought it was a dream. Only upon fully recovering did the reality sink in. In front of him, there was legendary World Tree. Overwhelmed by a sense of wonder, he marveled at the magical aura that permeated the surroundings. The waterfall cascading nearby hinted at the tree's extraordinary healing powers, surpassing any known medicine. Furthermore, the World Tree thrived in this dark dungeon, requiring no sunlight for sustenance. This defied all known laws of nature. Legend spoke of the World Tree as an inexhaustible source of mana, a power that fueled all magic. Humans, it was believed, drew their magical abilities from the ambient mana in the atmosphere. But centuries ago, the original World Tree had withered and vanished, leaving scholars baffled by the continued existence of ambient mana. Many brilliant minds hypothesized that other World Trees might exist, hidden from human eyes. Extensive searches across continents yielded no results, and now, here he was, standing before one. It was only natural, as no one would have expected the World Tree to flourish deep within a dungeon. He felt an overwhelming gratitude towards the tree for saving his life. Perhaps this was the first time in his life he had experienced such profound gratitude. Overjoyed, he touched the tree trunk, and a faint voice seemed to call out to him. He turned, but saw no one. He dismissed it as a figment of his imagination. He had to find a way out of this area. The eerie silence suggested an absence of monsters, so he cautiously ventured forward, relying solely on his senses. He knew his former companions would not return to rescue him, and starvation loomed. He had to take the risk, hoping for a chance to escape. Before leaving, he turned back to thank the tree and bid it farewell. However, the girl who had saved him was nowhere to be seen. He found himself in an uncharted territory, likely the first human to set foot in this place. His fate now rested entirely on luck. Despite his fear, he pressed on, carrying a rock for self-defense. He walked a considerable distance without encountering any monsters, a welcome relief. But before he could celebrate, a searing pain erupted in his ear. An unseen force had severed it, followed by a barrage of blows that inflicted excruciating agony. He activated his appraisal skill and discovered the culprit, the S-rank Grim Reaper of the Deep, a malevolent creature known for its sadistic delight in tormenting its prey before delivering the final blow. Ein was fortunate to be alive, for the Grim Reaper could have easily bisected him in an instant. But his misfortune was far from over. The Grim Reaper was swiftly dispatched by a far more terrifying creature. Ein, helpless and defenseless, was blinded by the beast's claws and his body was crushed beyond recognition, the creature eyeing him as a delectable meal prepared to devour him. Just then, an elf girl, accompanied by her teammates, intervened. With a swift, powerful blow, she obliterated the creature's head. When he regained consciousness, he found himself miraculously healed. This time, he saw his savior sitting before him. Her ethereal beauty, like a fairy from a forgotten tale, brought a sense of tranquility to his troubled heart. Looking at her, the man who had been saved spoke up, and Ursula told her daughter to make some tea for him. He thought, this tea is from someone's heart, so I have to cherish every last drop. Before he could understand what was happening, the little girl's mother poured all the tea into his own mouth. He tasted the delicious flavor too, and he praised it, which made the girl blush and her ears wiggle like a puppy. He thought she looked really cute. The old woman heard him. Don't you have bad intentions toward my daughter, or I'll kick you out, she said. Calm down, he replied. I was just asking about the person who saved my life. I found out that she doesn't like to get her hands dirty, but because Yuri kept asking her to help, she tried to clean up those monsters. So, you should be grateful to my daughter for saving you twice. The mother also made him kneel down and properly express his thanks. He simply said thank you normally. Yuri heard that and was so happy to be called by her name in such a friendly way. Her mother was not pleased and immediately kicked him in the face and stomped on him. She thought he was acting like a useless old blanket and still dared to flirt with girls. Yuri saw that and had to stop her mother from doing that. If she accidentally broke a few more of his bones, it would be tiring. When he heard Yuri calling mother, he asked how such a tiny woman could give birth to such a beautiful fairy. In fact, their relationship was just like that of a real mother and daughter. She was the Ursula, guardian of the world tree. He didn't understand anything, so she explained in more detail. In this world, there are 9 world trees, and strong people like them stand up to protect the trees and help them grow naturally. Sometimes they even have to face evil from the outside. This is the guardian's duty. It was said that she had lived with the world tree since it first took root. Just as he was thinking that Yuri was about the same age as the tree, to put it simply so that Ein's little brain could understand, she was an elf. Ein understood everything and leaned closer to see why she was so beautiful. Yuri was so embarrassed that her head felt hot. Seeing that, the tiny mother continued to stomp on the young man's head. What kind of disgusting thing was that? She asked. She thought he was flirting a little too much. Ursula asked if she wanted to gouge out his eyes. Ein remembered that he was blind in one eye, not to mention the other extremely serious injuries. The dwarf explained that as long as the damage to his body wasn't complete, the water from the world tree would heal it. But the other eye was totally crushed, so it couldn't be fully fixed. She had to use the world tree to make a new eye for Ein. He could think of it as the elf's eye, and of course, it would bring him many benefits. If Yuri hadn't begged so much, she wouldn't have done it. She really wanted to see Ein with both eyes. His eyes showed surprise, and he asked her why she went to such lengths. Shy and timid, he was the first one to say thank you from the bottom of his heart. The warmth his hands gave to the tree trunk made her feel it. Overall, it was very nice to meet a kind person, so she supported him completely. Ursula said that it was very rare for someone to fall down here, and every time, the girl saved them, but no one had ever said thank you. They even broke off a branch and took it back. That was awful. But Ein was different. She didn't visit Lamb. Even though she knew the uses of the world tree, he thanked to her appraisal skills. Hearing that, the young man thanked her again, thinking of her as his life's savior, so they wouldn't flirt anymore. The mother also chased her daughter away, saying it was very dangerous outside. Ein, as you can see, was useless. How could he live with the monsters from just now? Ursula didn't care, saying that their life or death was none of her business. What does it have to do with me? She asked. Yuri crawled with her right hand, hugging her grandmother to beg her guardian, but she wasn't allowed to leave a certain area around the tree, so taking him back to the ground safely was impossible. Hearing her too pessimistic daughter cry so much, the mother had to comfort her, saying that she already had a way. So don't worry. Ursula, although very annoyed with humans, had to endure for the sake of her beloved daughter. She wanted to train that guy from now on until he was strong enough to find his own way out. Hearing that, Yuri was extremely happy and immediately hugged her mother to express her feelings. I was very surprised when they said that they could survive and leave on their own. Too happy, he jumped up and hugged the other 2 people. What an opportunistic young man, you thought? You thought Ein should be proud because he would be directly trained by the strongest sage in the world. Of course, if he didn't meet the quota, he would be tortured to death. Ein showed his determination to ask for instruction. Then together they entered the dungeon for another lesson. The first was to control the power from his spirit eye. Ein was worried and asked to learn theory, but Ursula didn't have time, so they just went into real combat. Hurry up, because it won't die anyway. Don't worry, Ursula said. Ursula pointed forward and told him to look, but he couldn't see anything. The master was angry and kicked him a few times because he was so stupid. His left eye had been inlaid with a part of the world tree crystal, but he didn't know how to use it. Hearing that, he started to get used to the new eye. What he saw was the silhouette of that beautiful girl. When he opened his eyes, suddenly the dark space became much clearer. The training session began when Ursula called the old gremlin an S-rank monster. Just like before, this creature liked to play with the weak, so it wouldn't kill him right away. If he didn't want to suffer pain, he had to avoid the enemy's movements. This seemed impossible, but it was possible because he had the spirit appraisal ability. When this skill combined with the spirit eye, it gave him a new power. He tried it, and surprisingly, the result was extremely useful. Not only did he learn the monster's information, but he could also read the demon's attack method. The price he paid was having his ear cut off, so the master had to use some water from the world tree to heal him. Yuri knew it would turn out like this, so she prepared everything to help him. Ursula made a sinister face and said it couldn't die, so just enjoy it as much as possible. He had to try to activate the action appraisal again. This time, it was aimed at the left leg. Ein dodged the first time, avoiding damage from the S-rank monster. It was really fun. Ein started to realize that with the spirit eye, he could predict all the enemy's intentions. He turned around to celebrate with the master. The ending was being slashed a few times by the demon because he was so stupid, but the pain made the young man more determined, wanting to get used to the ability to predict the future like breathing. He just needed to transform into a new human. A week later, Ein had mastered future clairvoyance, so Ursula also switched to the fighting style. The main goal was to defeat that goofy demon. He was worried because the support profession was going to attack him. She had already calculated it all and explained it would be a waste of effort, so she just gave him the sword made from wood of the world tree. Just try to cut it and you'll know that this is one of the straightest and most beautiful branches on Yuri's body, she said. She wanted to contribute to him, so she endured the pain to break the branch. So if I dared to damage it, he would definitely die. Of course, he understood, but said he would cherish the sword for life because he knew how to move during the enemy's attack time. He thought he just needed to fight back, and that would be it. But it wasn't easy at the speed of a normal person. How could he touch a gremlin? The secret here is to continue using the spirit eye to support and enhance combat ability because it doesn't only have the function of appraisal. Hearing that, he tried to activate it, and suddenly the surrounding space seemed to slow down. This was the result after mastering the eye. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Ein launched a sudden slash that made the demon fall headfirst to the ground. He thought the force couldn't be that strong. He realized that even though he saw it moving slowly, in reality, it was different from the power of the slash at that speed. Of course, it was terrifying. The loser successfully defeated the S-level monster. Ursula immediately slapped him for celebrating early. The next task the master gave was to clean up all the gremlins in this area. It was really a waste of rice because he was familiar with the function of the spirit eye, so everything after that was too easy. The next lesson was to appraise the monster's ability and then convert it into his own. People develop skills through learning, so he will definitely be able to do it. Normally, he can only appraise and use that information as knowledge. As for the spirit eye, he can also turn the opponent's skills into his own. However, this is a bit difficult because his body is not used to moving at high speed like those monsters. After learning the skill, his mind becomes painful as if he has just absorbed a large amount of information. So Ursula let the disciple try it, and he really did run faster. However, for the illusionary demon like Gremlin, it is still not as good. The body is also damaged because it has not kept up with its own ability. Next, he will have to run a lot to master the speed. Every time he breaks a bone or tears a muscle, it will be restored to continue running, repeating it tens of thousands of times like that. Somehow, he will become unbelievably strong. Many days later, he feels like he can defeat the damn bear from last time, so he also asks his master to let him try. Ursula scolded him directly, saying it was still too early. So, she would pass on to him the appraisal ability of the strongest sage. Hearing that, Ein looked happy, but Ursula didn't look pleased, as if she was forced to do it for Yuri. Among the countless skills of his master, there was one that Ein would learn, which was spell cancellation. In other words, he could use magic just by thinking, without having to chant like a normal mage. By appraising the master's skills, the young man had learned that skill, but the price to pay was a bit high. His body felt like it was about to explode, but he still tried to analyze all the information. About 5 days later, Ein realized that his body had very little magical power, so he was unconscious all the time. When he used magic several times like that, Yuri used the water of the world tree to increase the total amount of magic power in his body to make it possible. The young man had to constantly push himself to the limit, because if there was still a little magic power left in his body, the volume wouldn't increase. Through a training session, he could now shoot out 1,000 fireballs at the same time. It was really crazy. All his stats were increased thanks to analyzing the gremlin skills. Master Ursula felt that this was enough, so she asked her younger brother to fight the bear again. After arriving, he looked scared because he had been beaten up before, but his master encouraged him, saying that he had become stronger, so he didn't need to worry. He just needed to use all the knowledge he had learned to fight it to the death. He made up his mind, stood in front of the big bear, and asked for a confrontation, opening with a series of fireballs. But seeing that, the bear wanted to use super acceleration to approach, but it was too predictable. Luckily, he could see into the future, so he counterattacked before being hit. In addition to the fire element, he had also mastered intermediate wind magic, but he wasn't very good at this ability, so the damage caused wasn't significant. With the thought that he would die if he fought for a long time, he continued to launch thousands of fireballs at his opponent. The bear was burned, and he also collapsed. Bringing his victory back, he showed Ursula that he was so strong. He was very happy because, from now on, he wouldn't be afraid of being looked down on anymore.